Hello, family. We're back for another exciting episode of SET-4-LIFE with Kente ScoO, and today we're going to be talking about the business of comedy. Hello, family. Ready for another exciting episode of SET-4-LIFE. With me today, I'm already giving him a hand. We got Kente ScoO. Before I even say anything about him, he's a comedian, actor. You write some too and do these things. And hey, it's a blessing to have him with us today. Kente, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you. You made me sound like I'm important. I appreciate that.
Right. So obviously you can see he's a comedian.
Yes.
So Kente, hey, we're gonna kind of just get right into it. And just gonna ask you certain questions, but I do wanna find out lessons that you've learned to help people in this area. But first, I gotta start with right here at FCBC. So hey, so we have something called FCBC Repertory. So can you tell us a little bit about that and your involvement?
FCBC Repertory Group is the actors ministry, but you don't necessarily have to be an actor. You just have to have a desire to use your acting talents, like the choir.
Right. Do you want to know that you don't have to be an actor? Because I've actually
I've
been in several things. And we were like, I found out right away that I'm not a professional actor.
But you don't have to be. It's just it's the gifts of the church, gifts that God blessed you with. Some people, it's different levels of acting. Like some people are really good at it. Some people are trying to be in it. But it doesn't matter in the repertory group because you come out, you're tithing your talent, you're tithing your time. And you enjoy yourself. And we have sketches. We did all the people you see on the Easter programs that are not in the choir, that are carrying the cross. That's me. That was us. Anybody that had to deliver the line. Yes, Jesus. J. Patrick is in the repertory group. Well, he's now a minister here, so I don't know if he's still in the repertory group. We ain't seen him in a while, but yes. So yeah, and I was in it years ago when Phaedra Harris used to be it, because I've been a member since almost 30 years now. Yeah.
Member 30 years?
Yeah, I was a member in third grade.
Okay, good.
I came right off the jungle gym and got baptized and said, yes, Bishop, I love your church.
Really? Because you know what? I actually have another question. Yeah. Can you actually be a Christian and be a comedian?
Yeah, I'm a Christian who's a comedian. Now, there's a difference. Like people think because you're a Christian who does comedy, you only do Christian comedy, which is gospel comedy. Like there are comics who be like, hey, what about Ecclesiastics? And so there are those comics. I'm a Christian comic who does clean, but depending on where you see me at, you might also see me cussing. But I'm a Christian who I cuss less. I'm growing in that.
Gotcha. So what we're going to say is, we'll use a different word. He's got a little bit of bandwidth.
You know what I mean?
He come over here, and say things, because I do have to let you know that when we watch you do something, which I'm going to ask you next about the Comedy Cafe and in different things in this area, I've watched you do comedy where you use the Bible, and I've watched that. And by the way, I've used some of that on the road when I've gone.
Okay.
I've seen that, and then also I've obviously seen the comedy. And by the way, we're going to put information a little bit about Kente on the front. The Comedy Store, Chocolate Sun.
Yes.
I've seen you other places. But either way, though, believe it or not, though, your humor, even though you're doing it, it's still Kente.
Yes. Because that's who I am. Like. I'm a Christian, I'm a comedian. Like, God blessed me with these talents.
Right.
And he didn't say, now you can only say it this way. Like, but it's just who I am. I also know that if you're in front of a clean audience, you do clean. Like, it's not like there's some comedians who'll be like, well, I'm doing clean, but I'm gonna do me. No, you can't do that. Like whoever, if you agree to do that show, then you agree to the parameters of that show. Cuss in your car, do it on the way home, but don't do it on that stage. And that's where comedians mess up, is that, well, I can't do clean because I got to do me.
Right.
Well, then don't do clean.
Or that whole thing, and then
I got to do me.
Right.
Well, then don't do clean.
Or that whole thing, and then pardon my language on that. That whole keeping it real.
Yes.
People doing that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get up there and be lit. Well, be
Right.
lit clean.
Exactly. And,
Right.
and this is what I tell every comic, and it's a lesson that I learned years ago, is you write every joke with nothing in it. You write the jokes like you're writing a book or you're writing an essay and you're gonna turn it in. So you write the jokes with no cursing in it, no derogatory language or anything like that. And if you decide to add that later, then that's on you. But your joke should be able to be done in a church, be done in a corporate setting, or to be done on TV before they allowed you to say everything they wanted you to say on TV. So you write it clean.
Right.
And then you learn it clean, and you're able to do it everywhere. Every joke, 95% of the jokes I tell, I can tell anywhere.
Yep, and also just so you know, SET-4-LIFE family, I'm not I just do research. I'm not a stalker of Kente.
Yeah.
But Kente tells a story about his daughter, about how old she is.
Yes.
You know, the sock on the door and
Yes.
the whole thing. And I've seen him say it in a church.
Yes.
And I've watched you say it at on Hollywood
Right.
Boulevard.
Non-church setting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I see even when you've added, you know, like, and how you do it, but it's the same, and it gets the same reaction because you're telling a story,
Right.
And you're doing it, and it has Kente fingerprints all over
Right.
how you do it,
Right, and it comes down to funny is funny.
Right.
Like if you're funny, then you should be able to be funny in front of Bishop Omer or in front of Bishop Magic Don Juan. So you should be able to be funny across the board. You should not have to change the essence of your comedy because you're in a different room. Like people are like, well, I got to do this because I'm here. No, and you have to learn that. Like you got to be very comfortable with who you are to be like, I'm gonna be Kente in every room I go into, and they're gonna love me because I'm funny as Kente in every room I go into, and that really becomes who you are. Like you become known as that. Like I can have Kente host this. I can have Kente come here, and I know he's going to deliver because I've seen him be funny across the board.
Okay, gotcha. So that's our SET-4-LIFE lesson number one is be who you are.
Yes.
Because actually that's who. When I'm asked that for public speaking, I tell people to be.
Yes.
Who you are. Like, they know when they come, they get George Thompson.
Right.
They know there's this guy, I always meet him when I was getting started. This guy's named Derek Pete. We always argue about. They know what George is going to do when I go to SoFi.
Yes.
They know what I'm going to do when I go to They know what I'm going to do.
Right.
So it's the same thing when you're out doing it. It's Kente.
Yes.
So like if you notice, and then I'm going to ask you a question about the Comedy Cafe, but before I do, when we get up, the way I'm going to not say heckle the audience, but like if somebody does something crazy, you already are with them, and at church, you don't get on them mean.
No.
You like he'll take that, like when you come in with an old outfit on, and he get ready to jump on them, you start telling people in the Bible. He said, "Hey, look, is it Mark, Luke, John?" You get on them. But then you use the Bible on them so they can't really get that mad.
Well,
you know what I mean? So like, how does it start off? Like, you see them and then you know, because.
Well, I grew up in a roasting family.
Oh. Okay.
And then I went to a roasting high school. I went to an all-boys high school in Northern California, St. Mary's High School, where all we did every day was roast each other. So you come to school, be like, I can't wait till lunch. I'm gonna talk about those pants. I can't believe he wore those shoes. Those are not even Jordans. Those are Air Lollies. I cannot wait to talk about those. So it became a trait of mine, so that when I see people, I already have three things immediately. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna use them unless I have to. So in terms of like people like, I'm gonna come to your show and heckle you, I'd be like, please do. Oh my God, please do.
Y'all.
Please
don't
go.
No. If y'all come, he already got the artillery.
Because
he waiting on you.
One thing is, hecklers are like, I want to be part of the show. I'm like, you really don't. Because as a comedian, we've set up our show how we want to do it. Now, if you decide to interject yourself into the show, then you've said to me, oh, you want to be the show.
Yeah.
Then I can make you the show. And then you be upset. But I'd started doing comedy in Oakland at this place called the End Zone. And the host said, if the people in the front row say, all right, player, that's enough, wrap it up and get off stage. Because these were Oakland in the 90s cats who made you disappear if they ain't like you enough.
Right.
So I always knew to joke enough until somebody stops laughing. Right. Like when the smile starts changing, All right, player. Okay, cool. We good. I'm moving on. Because I never want to fight over punchlines. I never want to get into an argument, fisticuffs over jokes. Right. I've seen it. That's great. I know I don't need to do that because this is my job. Right. And you interjected yourself into my set by heckling. But I know how to, even in a church setting, I know how to playfully mess with people. I know how to make them enjoy it. Right. Because we have, at the Comedy Cafe, we have a regular, Dennis. Yes. Dennis.
Shout out Dennis.
Shout out Dennis Lauderdale, who's literally been to every Comedy Cafe we've ever done, and sits in the front. And the last one we did, he came with no shoes and socks on. He came with flip-flops.
Yo, what he had to know.
And his toes were perpendicular to each other. They looked like they were throwing up gang signs because they were all on top. It looked like a crowded subway car in his toes. And we talked about him for 15 minutes, but as soon as he walked in, I said, if he says anything, those toes are going to be in the show. And so, but he did it. And the funny thing is we had fun with him. And after the show, he's like, I was so honored that you talked about my...
I think, though, he's waiting. I think next month, we're going to give out the time and everything for this, but I think that just from all the times I've been there, I think he's waiting because he sits in the same kind of area. And then it's like you and then Dino, you guys just get out there and you guys just get on him, you know that thing. And then also every now and then y'all jump on me and everything. I came in one time, y'all. I had this nice sweatsuit on. Dino walks up, gives him like, you see Pastor Thompson's outlet? Yeah, he got at the outlet.
He got all at the outlet.
I'm like, brother, can you let me sit down? Bro?
Yeah, well, Pastor George, you're kind of tall. You stand out a little bit. So we see you. And when you come out as a comedian, you look around and you want two things. You see who's in the audience, but you also know who you can mess with. Right. And they'll be okay with it. Right. Like, there's some people in the audience, some ladies in the audience who sit in that same section, and I never mess with because they are laughing with their eyes, but their face is saying, all right, not over here, young man. So, so you know who you can play with and who you can have fun with.
And you guys always do it tactfully and respectfully. Yes. You guys ain't all over, no. I'm a wife or nothing like that. Other than Dino saying, now, what's it like being with Pastor George? How much do you let you spend? Or it's about me, about her.
Right. I let Dino go to the deep end of the pool. I was like, go on, Dino, you can have that. I'm staying over here. Because I got to come back and host. You get to go produce in the back.
And he knows sometimes how things happen.
Right, exactly.
So he does joke with me, and he knows the relationship with you, everything like that.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about the Comedy Cafe? How did that start? And you have literally
been in it since the beginning. The Comedy Cafe has been, we are in the midst of our 6th year. We had our 6-year anniversary in April. So 6 years ago, Dino came to me and he was like, me and Derek Pete, because it's an extension of the Repertory company.
It is.
So he was like, we want to do the Comedy Cafe at church. And I was like, in the Tabernacle? He's like, no, we're doing the living room and they're building it out as a theater, performing arts situation. I said, cool. He said, I want you to host it. And it was funny because, there are other, this is Faithful Central, so there are other bigger name comedians who go here.
No.
And and he was like, I want you to host it because I like how you do your comedy. And I know that you'll be great for the Comedy Cafe. And I said, okay, cool. So we started it. It's the 4th Friday of every month. So we started that. And he also was like, and a lot of up and coming comedians who we can book. Tony Baker, to hear more, DC Irvin, Keon Poley, Crystal Powell, Pretty Ricky. Right. A lot of comics who are right now bubbling to where America is like, oh, yeah, I know those folks.
Right. I'm going to jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of people that you brought, like, oh, I hadn't seen that person. Then I saw him, and then right after I saw him, I see him everywhere.
Right. It's like when you get a new car. Right. And then you see that new car everywhere.
Or your wife or significant other has a car. You never notice it, but then all of a sudden now you're like, wait a minute.
Right. Like that car's everywhere. Right. So that's kind of the same thing. And the comedians wanted to come because the Comedy Cafe, is the best 4th Friday show in America. There's not a better show on the Fridays that we do our shows anywhere in the world because the audience comes to laugh. It's a clean show. We record it. It's professionally done.
Yeah.
A lot of comedians have gotten America's Got Talent off of it, cruise gigs off of it, TV shows off of just the tape from the Comedy Cafe.
Exactly.
And we give them time to stretch, because in LA, if you headline in LA, that's 12 minutes. But here you got to do 15 to 20 just to get on the stage.
Right.
And then if you headline, you're doing, we do it like a road show. On the road, you do, if you're a feature, you do 30 minutes.
Wow.
And if you headline, you do 45 and up. So here we do 15 to 20 as the first comic, and then the second comic does 25, 30, 35 minutes.
Right.
So it allows the comic to stretch and
right.
perform. And as comics, we love to have more time to be funny.
Right.
So it's been two things. It's served Faithful Central's audience and the friends and family of Faithful Central members.
Right.
And it served the comics, because the comics are hitting me up all the time. Like, hey man, when can I get back on Comedy Cafe?
Right.
Hey, that's the best show I've ever done, bar none. Like,
right.
you know, and we've had Ron G, took us 5 years to get him because he was busy, and he hit me up like, man, I don't care what day it is, let me know, and I'm booked. And so we had him a couple months ago. So we've had like all kind of comedians, but it's a great show. It's so much. It's $10. It's been $10 since the day we started. That's why Pastor George is there, because it's been $10. It's been $10 since we started it, and it's
you guys didn't adjust for inflation?
No.
What about gas prices?
No gas, nothing.
Y'all
We didn't change nothing.
We didn't change the prices.
And we used to give snacks and coffee at the beginning.
Snacks and coffee.
Yeah,
Is it still $10?
Yeah, still $10. Free parking. Free parking. No 2-drink minimum.
I'm calling Derek Pete right now.
Yeah.
Come down
Yes.
right now.
All of them. It's an 8 o'clock show, and you're out of there by 9:45. So it's $10, free parking, hour and a half, you are back home. So you cannot even say, y'all had me out too late, I was tired. No, 9:45, you are in your car heading home.
Gotcha. So hey, I'm gonna go back into the comedians real quick. The comedians that you have that come to the show, I always come up, me and my wife always shake hands, always talk to them.
Yeah.
And I genuinely look in their face and say, I am so glad to be here, because they're in an audience that literally wants you to be successful. Or when we're doing it, we're cheering them on. Like remember that when Jay Lamont gets up, he's like
beatbox.
There's this guy, he's like,
Yes.
but he's like a jukebox too.
Yeah, he's a jukebox.
He's just doing all the songs, everything like this. And then he goes, well, my time's almost up. And then it's like a church. Go ahead.
Yeah. Keep going. We ain't got nowhere to go. And security's in the back like, we got to go.
Yeah, like all some people are like,
we're on the clock. We're going on.
Yeah, the air conditioner gonna shut off in a minute.
Right.
So, but we're doing this. It's just a great environment. So it's a great environment for the people.
Yes.
You see that's just really good stewardship, and I just really like all the things.
Yeah, and it's a great grown-up night. Like, but it's also a great family night. Like, we've had kids from the age of 5 to the age of 35 with their parents and their grandparents. We've had 3 generations of people coming just to laugh. And the kids have just as much fun as the adults do. So it can be a date night. People are like, well, I can't find a babysitter. But like, as long as your baby is old enough to be in pre-K, they can come to the show.
Because it's clean and everything. And then it's just and here at Faithful Central, really just a family environment.
Right.
Things like that.
Yes.
All right, good. Hey, can I switch gears a little bit?
Yeah.
You know, I just want to talk a little bit about money.
And do this. You have to talk about money. It would be a Pastor George show. We to talk about money.
We definitely gonna talk about that. But now I know you tried to cover it with the $10 come in and all that and everything like that. But so just first of all though, in comedy though, so I want to find out a little bit how you got started. But then this is where I'm going is just kind of like all the different facets you do and how we go through. So first of all, how did you first know you were funny?
My mother. Like, I knew I was funny. Well, first I knew I was funny because like I said, I grew up in a roasting family and went to a roasting high school.
Yeah.
So I knew I was funny because I could hang with my cousins when they roasted, and then I knew I was funny because I was funny enough to hang with the people who were in my high school who were at the roasting table.
Professional roasters.
Yeah, so professional roasters. So I knew I had the potential to be funny. I never thought about doing stand-up comedy. I wasn't one of them ones that was like, I was in 3rd grade and I knew I was going to be a professional comic. I came to LA to go to UCLA. and started, started acting by, I always say I was chosen. I didn't choose acting because my first quarter at UCLA, guy comes up and was like, you want to audition for a commercial? And I was like, sure. I didn't know what any of that entailed. So he took a picture. 2 days later, he called me and said I was booked to do a Cleveland Power Company commercial. So I started acting first while I was still in school. And then my senior year, my mother came down and she was like, I'm not leaving here until you get on stage somewhere because I'm tired of you giving away all these jokes for free. And so after about a week, I was like, oh, she's serious. She's not leaving.
Wow.
And the only place I knew that had open mics type situation at that time was the Comedy Store. Wow. So went up to the Comedy Store on Sunday. And again, I didn't choose it. It chose me. I didn't know that there was a lottery system at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
So hundreds of people come. They only pick 11 to 13 comedians. Or aspiring comedians. Yeah. So put my name in the hat. I got chosen. I've never not gotten chosen for the Comedy Store's lottery open mic night.
That's God.
Ever. Yeah.
That's God. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, okay, thank you, Jesus. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And so I did my 3 minutes. I don't know what I talked about. I think I talked about fighting my sister, and she got in the windmill, and you got to be careful when they're in the windmill. You got to pick your swings when you can jump in there, or you're gonna get knocked out. And they laughed just enough for me to come back, and so I did it again, and they laughed again. And I every quarter at UCLA, I would buy my books, but I'd always buy a book that didn't have anything to do with school because I love reading since I was like 4. Right. So I had bought this book called The Art of Stand-Up Comedy by Judy Carter. And on the back of the book back then, they used to have, information. If you'd like to contact me, call this number. So I called the number, and she had a workshop. It was a comedy workshop teaching you how to write jokes, how to set up and punchlines, how to set up a 5-minute set, and then you did a showcase at the end where you invited your friends and family to. So I did the showcase, and she said, you need to do another class, and I'll give it to you for half off. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had 10 minutes at that point. So I was like, oh, I can do road work. I didn't know. I couldn't. But after that, I went and did my first 2 paid gigs in Oakland at this place called the End Zone on 35th and Fruitvale, which is the hood, or was the hood. It's gentrified now, but it was the hood. And then this place called Jeffrey's. And so all my friends and family came out to the show. That's when I first learned that I could talk about my father on stage and people would laugh really hard and he would laugh the hardest and he would invite all his friends. So that's how I got started. If my mother wouldn't have came down and been like, you got to get on stage somewhere, I probably would have never taken a chance on comedy.
Right, yeah. But it's just you were at UCLA, so everybody, you were in school.
Yes, I was in school, yes.
Your mother said that, and then you stayed in school.
Yes.
Did open mics. You kept doing it. You took the initiative. Then we saw it, and when God opened the door for you, you went through it, and then you kept doing it.
Yes.
Then you kept pursuing it. Then you said you bought a book that you like to read.
Yes.
And that you're doing that. So what you're doing is you're honing your craft.
Right.
And you're working on that. Then you also got up, talked about family, and invited people and told people what your vision was to doing it. Then you're doing comedy, right?
Yes.
And then you're doing acting at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. So then you're also doing, what else are you doing? You also
writing as well. But the writing came, well, I take it back. The writing came at the same time because I would always write short stories when I was little. But then when I got older, I was like, these scripts that I'm auditioning for are all the same. It was either gangbanger or gangbanger's best friend. It was like, oh, okay, it's all the same cat. So I was like, I want to start writing stuff that appeals to more of me because I didn't grow up like that. I knew people like that. Like Oakland is small, so I know the doctor's kids, but I also know the drug dealer. And because we all would ride the same bus to school.
Right.
So you knew all of them, but that doesn't necessarily mean I had their upbringing. I was closer to the doctor's kids' childhood than I was to the drug dealers.
Right.
So I was like, we're not seeing enough of that. So I started just writing and teaching myself how to write scripts and taking again, honing my craft. I'm always like, you're always learning. So I learned how to write scripts and write it in a script format. And then, then you learn the pitching side of it, where you're like, oh, I can't just give you the script. They're like, tell me about it. I'm like, read it. They're like, no, you have to pitch it to me. So then you have to learn the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Where you get 30 seconds to tell exactly what the project is in enough time for them to be like, okay, I want to hear more. Because that's
right. Because if you aren't passionate about it, you aren't doing it. How are they going to be passionate enough to even to read it? You're just giving them enough information to have them be able to read it.
Yeah. All you want them to do is say, okay, let me hear more. Okay, let me read more. Okay, I want to check it out. All right, I want to bring you in for a meeting. And then finally, at some point, get to a check.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to have that persistence.
Oh, yes.
And especially, then I'm going to ask one question about, and then we're getting into money on a minute. But now, when you go on audition, how do you learn not to take all that personally, or like if you audition, you don't get it, or doing things? Because I watch, I'm going to say you and I have to throw in, but there's the people I know that are actors, it just never bothers them. I'm like, it never bothers.
It does and it doesn't. Like you only need one yes. Like every like I had an agent, he was like, you get paid very well when you go do a SAG project, and it's not because of what you're doing that day. You're getting paid for all the no's you've taken. So your check, your yes pays for all the no's. So if you get 20 no's, you get one yes, then you reset. Then you're back to my one yes cleared out all those no's. Right. So then your next no is just your first no again.
Right. Yeah. And I need 19. I need 19 more of y'all to say no so I can get to my yes.
So then your next goal is lessen the number of no's, but the no's are still going to come. Like the no's never go away. Like there's never until you get to a Denzel, somebody like that,
where you're telling them no.
Yeah. Then you get to that level, then you can tell. Then there's no no's. But those are few and far between. Then you're in charge of your whole situation. But in terms of actors who are building and growing, there's always no's. Your yeses just reset the no's. So every time you get a yes, if you get 3 yeses in a year, you can be living very well. Right. If you get 2 yeses, if you get the right 2 yeses in a year, you can be eating very well for years to come.
Right.
So the no's affect you, and we have a community of comedians and actors and all that. So stuff get rough, you reach out and talk to somebody, be like, man, I don't know how much longer I could do this. Or
they're asking me to do this.
Yes.
So no, but pastors, I have a group of pastors. I talked to, I said, can you believe they said, and there's a group of financial advisors we work with. So that's another one of our lessons right now is get in a group of people who are doing the same type of thing.
Like
when you want to work out, when you want to work out, I hang around workout.
Right.
And if you remember, I wanted to learn comedy because if you remember, we've had this discussion. We had this at Comedy Cafe. You guys, there are 3 people who are the best storytellers in the world. Number 1, I'm biased to this, is pastors. I think we tell stories. I think Bishop Balmer told a story about eating some food right there, and he was talking about it so much. I started to feel something. I was like, when he was talking,
like I need to.
I started having, and he always starts off. Remember, premise, setup, punchline, which you already know.
Yes.
Bishop just held a plate, and then the plate was Then biblically that was the foundation.
Right.
But the plate was something that you eat off. Plate was something he started working the plate. And then second is comedians.
Right.
You, everybody. I'm going to go historically, like Richard Pryor, the way they tell. The way he tells stories, like when he was in Africa. I looked around to see if there was a lion behind me, like while he was talking.
Yeah.
So in doing that, and then extremely good salespeople.
Oh,
people that are
true.
Yeah. They walk into when you walk into a home, they literally have you thinking this is your house,
right?
Before you leave, or in any area like that.
But if you think about it,
sorry, go ahead.
If you think about it, everything is those 3 fields are connected. Pastors are giving, AKA selling the word to their congregation. Comedians are selling themselves and their lives and their stories to the audience. Right. Salespeople are selling their product. So we all are doing the same thing. We just have a different product.
Right.
Pastors
God,
is the word.
Right.
God.
We want you to be excited about God is
yeah.
we are.
Ours is the jokes.
And you're right. And we're so excited about the words. Like that's why the illustrations.
And all three of those too is the passion in all of them.
Right.
Like you've seen pastors that have just been reciting. And you're like, I didn't feel nothing.
Right.
But Bishop and pastors of his and your ilk is that their passion comes through. And they're like, well, I ain't never know Job. I knew the word Job, the book of Job, but I didn't know the passion of it. Let me go back and read it again. So it makes you more excited about it. Comedians are like, I never thought about like Richard Pryor, talking about Mudbone.
Right.
I want to hear more about Mudbone just because of how excited he was as he told that story. Like good comedians, good pastors, and good salespeople is based on their passion of what they're talking about. Like you can see when somebody's mailing it in.
And that's, you know what? I'm gonna go back to something you said earlier, and this is very true. Oh my goodness, I'm learning something. I'm gonna write it down. I know everybody else typing it down. I'm gonna write it down. Is that, you know how you said earlier about being your true self? This is it. Whenever I get up and present, people always go, he lives that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like you've never heard me speaking and going, he's probably down. He's down after he leaves here. You know I ain't down at no Louis Vuitton.
Well, you're not on Rodeo Drive.
If I went to Rodeo Drive, my skin would break out.
Like, you know what I mean? I was on Rodeo Drive. Yeah, we can see it.
Or if you heard I was down there, they done kidnapped me.
Right.
Somebody done got me.
Yeah.
And you and the 300 people behind me right here, y'all need to come down there and get me. Don't leave me down there.
Yeah.
Especially don't let me spend no money down there neither.
I think your credit card company might be like, no, this is a mistake. Decline. It's a $10 charge on here on Rodeo Drive. I'm like, yeah, I'm kidnapped. Come get me.
Next time I speak, this is what I'm gonna be talking about. Okay, but this is the point, and this is what we can do and what we can learn is this.
Right.
Is be yourself.
Yes.
When you're presenting, because everybody's in sales. I mean, president on down. You know what I mean? Like you're always trying to get people to do it.
Right.
So be yourself, and then if you remember why I took the comedy class, I wanted the comedy. I had to break it up.
Right.
In 2008, I had to walk into churches or walk into filled rooms with people, and everybody knows 2008, 2009.
Everybody was
losing their home, right?
Right.
And I walk in, and I was sitting, I say, everybody open your Bibles, and everybody be like this and crying. I'd say, man, anybody's credit score 150? And then just start the humor.
Yeah.
And then when everybody go 150, say there was 500, they would laugh. You can't have I'm sorry for anybody, you cannot have a 150 credit.
That's literally impossible.
They stopped taking cash at right around 500.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but I said that, and then I could feel the whole room just like, just breathe.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then we do that, and praise Him, and then I could get them to listen because I made them laugh.
Right. Yeah,
in doing that, and that is just literally
right. Because comedy allows is the equalizer. If you can get somebody to laugh, you that's why they say if you have icebreakers used to be either a good joke or a bad joke. Either way, it was a joke. Like it was a bad joke, they'd be like, I know I'm not a comedian, and then they loosened up. It's like, no, you're not at all. But they loosen up. Comedy is Bishop. I used to, one of the things that drew me to Bishop's sermons when I came to Faithful Central in third grade, sticking to that, was that I was like, he has so much comedy mixed into this word that is making me want to come back, and I'm not coming, because I grew up in church. But as soon as I turned 18, I was like, I'm gonna be like my daddy. I'm just gonna watch football on Sundays. I'm not going back to church. And I was invited to Faithful Central, and Bishop, I was like, oh, he's funny. Right. And but all of his comedy went back to the word. Like all of his comedy went back to scripture. And I was like, this man is amazing. And then the more I looked, it was almost like the chorus, more and more pastors that I started to notice would do the same thing. And I was like, that's amazing. Yeah. They're using comedy to get their congregation loosened up so that they can fill them up with the word.
Right.
So I'm like, that's why I love comedy so much, because it allows you to do so much with the vehicle of comedy.
Kente, we haven't talked about money. You know that's a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yes, I do.
So hey, can you come back next episode and us talk about it?
Yeah.
Great. Family, come back next week we're going to be talking about the business of comedy. Look forward to seeing you on our next episode.